That's it. WBC qualifiers are all done with. Congratulations to Colombia and Brazil, joining Nicaragua and Taiwan from the first qualifier to complete the field of 20 teams for the 2026 WBC. The second qualifier, held in Tucson, Arizona over the past week, was entertaining, but unlike the first qualifier that took place in Taiwan the week before, this one was much more lopsided. One team was clearly in another class. Another team just couldn't keep up with the rest. But it left us with a good match in the middle. Brazil and Germany provided some good action in the two games they played versus each other. In the end, though, the 5-day, 7-game tournament turned out exactly like most people thought it would. Colombia dominates. China lags behind. Germany keeps it close, but Brazil prevails and grabs the last spot. That's what most of us thought would happen. That's what did happen. Just some thoughts here on the second WBC qualifier, about the play on the field, what it means, and what should have been done differently. I think it goes without saying that Colombia was, by far, the best team in this qualifier. The action on the field speaks for itself. Outscored their opponents 23-1. And it surprised no one. We had a pretty good idea going into this that Colombia was just going to breeze through it. Their roster included guys who played in MLB in 2024. The rest were mostly good prospects, young and on their way up in the minors. No washed-up 40-somethings, no single-A dropouts. A team fit for the WBC, not just a qualifier. But what surprised many is that the one player who did not come in with a recent record of success in the MLB system turned out to be the team's best player. Jesus Mariaga was 6 out of 12 at the plate, with a home run, a double, a triple, 7 RBI, and 3 runs scored in 3 games. Batted .500, slugged .1,000. The 26-year-old outfielder didn't last long as a D-backs prospect. 2016 to 2019, the highest he got was low single-A in 2019. In that year, 66 games, 17 steals, and a .725 OPS. Not bad, but he never returned after that. 2020 was the canceled minor league season. Then after that, he started playing Indy League in the summer, Colombian League in the winter. In the winter of 2022 to 2023, he was the best hitter in the Colombian League. 41 games, batted .367, on base .491, slugging .568, OPS over 1,000, and followed that with a good Caribbean series. In the summer of 2023 with the Gary South Shore Railcats of the American Association, 98 games, 9 home runs, 28 stolen bases, .362 on-base percentage, .443 slugging, .805 OPS. But then in 2024 he played nowhere in the summer. Still one of the best in Colombia the last 2 winters, but that's all he's doing lately. So in the last few years he's been a great hitter in the Colombian Winter League, American Association, Caribbean Series, and now the WBC qualifier, outperforming active major league hitters on his own team. Don't know why he hasn't been given more chances, and at 26 years old I don't expect a major league team to give him another chance. But it seems odd that he's been so good wherever he plays, but his chances to move up, or even continue where he is, have been so limited. Next, China was awful. We thought they might finish last going into this, not a big surprise there. What was shocking though was just how bad they were. Outscored 32-5. Suffered the 7-inning mercy rule, twice. Compare that with the last place team from the other qualifier. South Africa avoided the mercy rule every time, and even took the eventual champion into extra innings. China had no such glimmer of hope. They just could not hang with the other 3. This was a China team that played in the last WBC and led the Czech team after 8 innings. The Czechs are about on the same level as the Germans, yet Germany destroyed China in the qualifier. One thing that didn't work for China this time, Alan Jean Carter underperformed. He got the start versus Germany and allowed 4 runs, 2 earned, 2 unearned, in 3 innings. In the WBC 2 years ago versus the Czech Republic, 3 innings, 4 Ks, and only 1 unearned run allowed. Carter is a good pitcher. Last year in the American Association, 37 innings in relief, 61 strikeouts, ERA 0.72, WHIP 106. So they had every reason to believe they could count on him to silence the German bats. Certainly the errors on the field were not his fault, but his work on the mound wasn't as good as they had expected. You'll have that though. If all your hopes are pinned to a relief pitcher being used as a starting pitcher, that just shows that you don't have much of a team to work with. And going into this, it seemed like they might work better as a team than Germany or Brazil. Last September they placed 4th at the Under-23 Baseball World Cup, ahead of countries like Korea, Venezuela, Netherlands, Taiwan, Australia, and Colombia. Yes, that tournament was in China, but home field advantage only carries you so far. Seemed like they might have a good young team coming up. but it didn't translate into any kind of success at the qualifier. After a terrible performance like that, they may not be invited back in 3 years. If the WBC qualifiers are not expanded, they should consider bumping China and giving someone else a shot. I think they'll expand the qualifiers anyway, but if they don't, China should sit out the next one and try to earn their way back. Next, Brazil needed this. Another disappointing qualifier would have been really hard for Brazilian baseball. In the 2010s, it appeared that an explosion in Brazilian baseball was underway. 2012, Yan Gomes became the first Brazilian-born player to reach MLB. Later that same year, Brazil shocked the world by beating Colombia and Panama to qualify for the WBC. In the next 5 years, 4 more Brazilian ballplayers made their MLB debuts. But then it all stopped. They failed to re-qualify for the 2017 and 2023 WBCs. And those 4 players who made it to MLB, all done by 2020, never to appear again. Gomes has been the only Brazilian in MLB in the 2020s. He'll turn 38 this year, and he's coming off a bad 2024. So the number of MLB Brazilians for 2025 may well be 0, for the first time in 14 years. A loss to Germany in this qualifier would have been painful. Last time they lost to Panama and Nicaragua, which are good losses. No offense to Germany, but losing to another country that's not a big baseball country would have felt like a big step back for Brazil. They'd like to get themselves on a more even level with the Caribbean countries, not losing to a European country. They needed something to show that Brazilian baseball is still on that path, and getting back to the WBC is just what they needed to keep themselves moving forward. Next step is to stay in the WBC. They've got some work to do if that's going to happen, but they've got a year now to get ready for it. Next, Germany is getting better and will get there someday. 2 runs shy of beating Brazil, twice. Almost good enough to qualify for the WBC. In the past, I think it wouldn't have been so close. They are getting better. Sadly though, Germany went into this as the best team to have never reached the WBC, and they'll hold that distinction for a few more years. One major positive though, they seem to have put an end to their history of underperforming in international tournaments. That had been going on for a long time, but in the last European Championship and this WBC qualifier, they were able to meet expectations. They still need to get a little better, or find a way to manage an upset to take things up a level. And from watching them the last few days, looks like the hitting is good, pitching is not bad, but the fielding needs some work. And last, what I'll spend the most time talking about, the WBC qualifiers should have been in Colombia, Barranquilla or Cartagena, not Tucson. Taiwan got to host the first qualifier, and it made sense. They were the favored country in their group. They had the largest venue, guaranteed to deliver the best possible attendance figures. Colombia met all that criteria too, and they were looking at 2 stadiums in Colombia as possible hosting sites, Estadio Edgar Renteria and Estadio Once de Noviembre. The former just opened 7 years ago, the latter 78 years old. The modern ballpark and the classic one, sort of like the Tokyo Dome and Koshien of Colombia. Would have been a great way to show off Colombian baseball to the world of baseball. And they both seat 12,000. There would have been a full house for all 3 games Colombia was playing in for sure. Every year in January we can see Estadio Edgar Renteria, all seats filled. And that's for professional baseball. Having the national team play on Colombian soil would have been a huge deal there. The whole country would have been getting behind Team Colombia. It was a chance to help try and make baseball a more national sport in Colombia, rather than just a regional one. In case you don't know the sports situation in Colombia, baseball is really popular in the coastal region, that part up north between Panama and Venezuela that sticks out into the Caribbean. It's been that way historically and continues today. But in the lower part of the country, where most of the population resides, baseball is hardly known, and soccer is king. It would be great for the rest of the country to get into baseball. That's only going to happen one of 2 ways. One is, a new franchise in the Colombian League begins play in the country's capital and largest city of Bogota. The team could eventually be a success, but it would probably lose money for the first few years, and you'd need to find a person or a group of people willing to lose money in the short term. Or you could hold a major international tournament in Colombia. Sure, it would have to be in the coastal region, and it would likely be attended by people from the region, the same ones who fill the stands for the Colombian League's games every winter. But it would attract so much attention throughout the country. They're much more likely to tune in to watch the Colombian national team take down 3 other countries than they are for any game between 2 Colombian League teams. And having it happen on their home soil would mean so much. Baseball can seem like a very foreign sport for those living in the main part of the country, even though baseball is a big deal in one part of the country. Tucson, to be fair, had okay attendance figures. Every game drew over 1,000, with over 3,000 in the most attended game. Compare that to the 2023 qualifiers. In Germany, 4 of the 9 games had under 1,000 in attendance. Highest attended game was just over 2,000. In the Panama qualifier, the 2 games involving Team Panama drew over 5,000. Problem was, 2 wins were all they needed, and the other 7 games were all in the hundreds. Average attendance for this recent qualifier in Tucson was over 2,000, beating both of the qualifiers from 3 years ago. Combine that with Taiwan's record attendance in the first qualifier, and these qualifiers were a success. The one disappointment with the 2023 WBC was the qualifier attendance. Might have had to do with the weather in Germany, cost of tickets in Panama, or maybe there were too many teams involved, creating some undesirable matchups. But whatever the reason, they did better this time, and Tucson should be kept around as an option in case you have 4 countries grouped together and none of those countries have a proper venue for a WBC qualifier. But in this case, there was one country that could have smashed the attendance scene in Tucson, and they could have grown the game there. You're not going to grow the game in Arizona. They've got spring training this time of year. Colombia is still waiting for a major baseball event. Should have given it to them. And that's it. Now we just wait 363 days till the start of the main tournament. But there will be plenty of buzz in the build-up to it, so let's enjoy the ride. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!